Hello and welcome back on my channel. Thank you so much for joining me again. If you're new here, hi, my name is Cece and we're ready to do my TBR game for the month of July. If you haven't seen my TBR game before, real quick, this is how it works. I have ducks with different colors on the bottom, and these colors represent a genre or a type of book. Green stands for an arc, yellow stands for out of my comfort zone, black for sci-fi or Afrofuturism, orange for fantasy, red for a contemporary, and then purple stands for historical fiction. All right, so I'm going to pick a duck, and then with that genre, I am picking a challenge. These are amazingly done cards by my friend Adi, and they then tell me what challenge I have to do in this genre. This whole game was pretty much done with completely Melanie, so shout out to her. She is a genius when it comes to this type of game. She is in love with games and she has so many great ideas. If I do not complete all of the books that I have picked through this TBR game, I have to do some challenges in real life, and you can see at least one of them. I'm going to link them so you can watch them. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I have 6 different types of challenges depending on the color that I didn't finish. How many do we pick? We pick as long as we get 2 greens because I want to get my arcs down. So that's why I also picked arc as a genre. If we pick 2 greens right away, we're going to pick a maximum of 5. So 5 is the minimum number, and then there's no limit. And that's scary. At this point, I already have 5,600 pages on my TBR for July through like book clubs, buddy reads, etc. All right, let's get started. Let's move them around a little bit because it doesn't do it on its own. So I don't know what's what. Let's pick the first one. Let's pick this one. I haven't seen the color on this one. Yellow! So we're starting with out of my comfort zone. Whoop-de-woo. So what is the challenge for out of my comfort zone? The challenge is more than 500 pages. Are you kidding me? What kind of start is that? I have to read a beast that's out of my comfort zone? Out of my comfort zone is romance, nonfiction, horror. Nonfiction and romance is typically not above 500 pages, so that's going to be a hard one. So for this, I have picked the Eminent Crumbs Staubkönig by Lynn Reena. I don't know why this is on my TBR, why I agreed to read this. This is a traveling book. People in this Goodreads group we have in Germany are reading it. We put in here like who read it, everybody gets different color, and then we comment on it. And now this is considered historical romance, which is so not my thing. But I think I just got intrigued by the beautiful cover and that it's a traveling book. Let me try and translate this. England 1890, not my era as well. Dresses, balls, and looking for the perfect husband. This is what Aminan's mother wants for her daughter. But Annie has different stuff in her mind. She loves the world of books, and she's trying to avoid reality with her sharp mind and a good portion of sarcasm. Until this knocks on her door and makes an offer that changes her life completely. A month in London, a big automated search machine, the circumstances of the less privileged, and a job in a library. Obviously, feelings that she just knew from books at this point. It kind of intrigued me, but also it's romance. It's historical fiction in an era that I don't like. So this totally is out of my comfort zone, but I gotta read it. I committed to it, so let's do this. Orange, which is fantasy. We can do fantasy. Can we have more than 500 pages with fantasy, please? Because that's so much easier. Let's take this one. Super hyped for it. Yes! Okay, this is good. This is a good one. So for this, I starting the second era in Mistborn with The Alloy of Law. I'm reading this for the Readalongs anyways, where we read the whole Brandon Sanderson works throughout the year. So this is kind of perfect. I am super hyped to continue in the Mistborn series. I don't know anything about it, so I can't talk to you about it, just that I loved the first Mistborn era. And if you want to dabble into Brandon Sanderson, if you want to dabble into fantasy, it's a really great place to start. So if you haven't read it and fantasy is your thing, give it a try. But anyways, I am super pumped for it. I can't wait, and it's on my list anyway, so this fits perfectly. Yellow again! Okay, let's get a better prompt. Less than 250 pages. We can do that! So for this, I have picked Play It As It Is. Play It As It is a book that we are reading for the Spilling Tea Book Club, which is run by two amazing guys. I'm linking it down below. We're reading 20th Century Women, and the discussions are always so great. Even the books that I did not enjoy, I enjoyed the discussion about it so much, and I enjoyed the perspective and everything. But a lot of the books seem to be out of my comfort zone. Some of them I didn't enjoy, some of them I loved. What I love most about it and why I keep going back is this community and this discussion just opens up my mind so much that I really appreciate it. Also, it's one of the only book clubs that I've seen on BookTube where we actually, all the readers come together and chat about and discuss it. It's not like a live show with 4 or 6 people talking to an audience. It is much more engaging because it's just a Zoom call, and I love that. Play It As It Lays, for me, is out of my comfort zone because of the description. It just doesn't feel like my thing. I'm just gonna read it to you. A ruthless dissection of American life in the late 1960s. Play It As It Lays captures the mood of an entire generation, the enemy of contemporary society reflected in spare prose that blisters and haunts the reader. Set in a place beyond good and evil, literally in Hollywood, Las Vegas, and the barren wastes of the Mojave Desert, but figuratively in the landscape of an arid soul. It remains more than 3 decades after its original publication a profoundly disturbing novel, riveting in its exploration of a woman and a society in crisis, and stunning in the still startling intensity of its prose. So there's several things that scare me. Prose, it feels very like, could be magical realism, it could be classic, could be dabbling in the absurd, or in very like imagery heavy, which is not my thing. But then I also love that it's beyond good and evil. I love that it's a little bit disturbing, etc. So this can go really, really wrong or really, really right, but I'm gonna read it anyway, so it is out of my comfort zone, but I think it's it's going to be an interesting experience. Pick number 4. Black, sci-fi or Afrofuturism. Yay! I didn't have black last month, so I'm super hyped that I have black because I love sci-fi and I love Afrofuturism. Hyped on BookTube. For this one, I really had to think about what sci-fi or Afrofuturism is hyped on BookTube, because I don't see a lot of sci-fi or Afrofuturism hyped on BookTube. And then it came to me. There's one series that is super hyped and that I am super hyped for myself to continue, and that is the Illuminae Files by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff, and I'm going to be reading the second one. I'm really looking forward to this. I don't know what to tell you about this book because I feel like it's super hyped and people already know about it. The most intriguing thing is that the way the book is written is different mediums, and it's a very new reading experience. I absolutely recommend it with the first one to listen to the audiobook because it's a full cast, I believe, and it's super well done. And also visually, you're missing out if you don't read both, like audio and the physical book. You're missing out because both can't do everything, but it's so good. It was so good. And it might have been so good because of that experience. I think that the initial story is good, but it's just good. I mean, we're in space, we have a young boy and a young girl, well, teenagers. We have a very typical YA tropey thing. We have a few things that are different and that are unique enough to make it interesting enough for me. Honestly, what really, really is making this so intensely amazing is the medium, and that it just is so different. So check it out, look at it physically, and give it a try because it is really good. I'm really looking forward to reading the second one. Pick number 5, and we didn't have a green yet. Orange, another fantasy. Let's go with this. Super hyped for it again! So funny enough, I have a second Brandon Sanderson Mistborn. The second in the second era is on my TBR already for the Readalongs, so obviously we're going to continue with this. It just makes sense. I'm super hyped for it, so it just makes sense. Everything that I said before applies as well. And pick number 6 is purple, so historical fiction. Prompt. A new to me author. That I can do. And for this, I have picked Das Parfüm by Patrick Süskind. A few people have been telling me that I should really read this because I love the villainous, the evil thing of the human mind, of humankind, and I love to dabble into the disturbing and everything, so people have been telling me to read Das Parfüm. And now in July we're going to be reading it as a group read with a couple of people. If you want to join in reading this with us, let me know. I'm going to post a link to a Discord channel down below. We're going to be reading this together in July, and I'm super looking forward to this. I'm really pumped. It's a story about a murderer. It really goes into the murderer's mind, and I have read some reviews that say that it is at times really disturbing. People actually read it in school here, which I find really interesting as well. So there probably is a lot to talk about, thus why I think a group read is fantastic. I believe, if I get this correctly, is that the murderer gets really obsessed with the scent of young women, and he wants to capture the essence of what a pure young woman like smells like. I don't know. It's going to be disturbing, but in a mind-opening way, I hope. I'm really looking forward to this. Black, sci-fi or Afrofuturism. From my top shelf! The top shelf is the books that I'm most hyped for, or that I find the prettiest, so the top shelf. For this, I have picked Recursion by Blake Crouch. So this was really hard. I actually had 7 books to pick from, and a random generator had to pick it for me. I am really looking forward to this one. It has gotten so many great reviews. I've heard so many good things about it, but I don't know too much about it. I think that this is considered time travel science fiction. Memory makes reality. That's what New York City cop Barry Sutton is learning as he investigates the devastating phenomenon that media has dubbed false memory syndrome, a mysterious affliction that drives its victim mad with memories of a life they never lived. That's what neuroscientist Helena Smith believes. It's why she's dedicated her life to creating a technology that will let us preserve our most precious memories. If she succeeds, anyone will be able to re-experience a first kiss, a birth of a child, a final moment with a dying parent. As Barry searches for the truth, he comes face to face with an opponent more terrifying than any disease, a force that attacks not just our minds, but the very fabric of the past. And as its effects begin to unmake the world as we know it, only he and Helena, working together, will stand a chance at defeating it. But how can they make a stand when reality itself is shifting and crumbling all around them? At once a relentless page-turner and an intricate science fiction puzzle box about time, identity, and memory, Recursion is a thriller as only Blake Crouch could imagine it, and his most ambitious, mind-boggling, irresistible work to date. Now, if that doesn't sound intriguing, you're probably not into science fiction, like the non-spaceship science fiction, you know? Orange, another fantasy. This is pick number 8. Okay, what are we doing with this fantasy? Cultural background other than my own. Oh, that's going to be interesting with fantasy. For this, I have picked Imprisoned in the Sky by A.C. I don't know how to pronounce this correctly. The first book was Rain the Earth, and it was really, really diverse. I really enjoyed it. I felt like the main character's cultural background was a little bit like Arabic, North African maybe inspired, like people living in the desert, nomadic lifestyle kind of thing. That's what I know from like the first book. I know that the second book is focusing on a different character who was a side character in the first one, and as far as I understand, the second book can stand on its own. So I'm not entirely sure about the representation of like the cultural background, but if I remember correctly, this is more of a pirate living on a ship kind of deal, and I don't know what cultures it's inspired by, but the first one felt so different and so familiar at the same time. I was really intrigued, and I have a feeling that AC will be able to do that in the second one as well. But what I heard about this one as well, which is what intrigued me, and I will consider it's different to my own. It's not my culture, but my identity different to my own. This is from a review off of Goodreads by Stella. FC Con doesn't have like the most exceptional writing style in the world, but I subjectively really enjoy it. The first book was fairly diverse, but I love how here everyone has different appearances and Aspasia is so casually by Pan. We love to see casual diversity in fantasy. And this is what I feel like lets me consider this as different cultural background to my own, because it's different identity background and sounds very diverse, even though I can't confirm it yet, but really looking forward to this. I think that this has been on my TBR for years now. Green! Yes, finally green! What challenge do we have to do with green? From your wish list. Okay, that's not happening because my wish list is books that I don't own yet, so I don't have an arc on my wish list, because all the arcs that I have, like I can't guarantee that I can wish for something and I'm going to be approved for it over the next week or so. So I'm going to pick again. Buzzword of the month. Do I pick it or what? Buzzword of the month. I don't know what the buzzword is, but I'm going to pick a reserve if I don't have an arc with the buzzword of the month. The buzzword of the month is the word last. And I do have an arc with the word last in it. I wanted to read it last month, pun intended or not, but I didn't get around to it. And that is Last Night with Tokyo Rose. Last Night with Tokyo Rose is a Second World War story about a Japanese American in America. Let me read this part for you. As Japan and the United States edge to the brink of war, the truth is all too clear. America has no place for someone like him. In search of his place in the world, he leaves his hometown of Seattle and sets out to sea. In Manila, he meets Fumiko, a Nisei from Los Angeles with a heartbreaking past who captures his heart. His soulmate who tread the same path of prejudice he walked at home. Together they begin a new life in this burgeoning city under American colonial rule where they are no longer shunned. The Pearl Harbor attack destroys their dreams. Their dual identity now forces them to take a side. Their survival hinges on whether they stand with the land of the rising sun or the land of the free. Stranded in occupied territory, Tom must decide where his loyalty lies. So what I really like about this one is that I have read a couple of books now about like the internment, about the Japanese American internment centers and everything. I haven't read anything around it, and I do think that this is really interesting and is going to give me another perspective. I'm not sure about the author's heritage because the last name, I believe, sounds traditionally Chinese. Also, the author has, I believe, written some books about that take place in Shanghai. So I'm not 100% sure about the author's heritage, but I will figure that out when I read it and look that up and see how much of this is from like experience of family stories, etc., and how much this is made up. Red. So we have a first contemporary, and with this we have every color. Contemporary, we're going to do a new to me author. For this one, I have picked Safe Arbor by Christina Kilborn. This I also have here as an ARC, and it just sounded super intriguing, and I just haven't gotten around to reading it. Again, let me read this to you. 14-year-old Arbor is living in a tent in a Toronto ravine with her dog, a 2-month supply of canned tuna, and an eccentric reading list. She's not homeless, she tells herself. She's merely waiting for her home, a 36-foot sailboat to arrive with her father at the helm. Why should she worry when the clouds give her signs that assure her that she's safe and protected? When her credit card gets declined, phone contact from her father stops, and summer slips into a frosty fall, Harbor is forced to face reality and accept the help of a homeless girl named Lise to survive on the streets. Lise shows Harbor how to panhandle and navigate the shelter system while trying to unravel Arbor's mysterious past. But if Harbor tells her anything, the consequences could be catastrophic. So this is pitched as mental illness, and I'm very intrigued to understand what part of this potentially is the mental illness, if it's just the trauma that this girl is experiencing on the street, or if potentially some of the father and waiting for the father potentially is caused by mental illness as well, and that her reality is not our reality. So I'm super excited for that as well. Pick number 10. Purple, another historical fiction. Let a friend pick for you. For this, I asked my good friend Paperback Mo to pick a book for me. Mo?
Hey Cece. I don't read a lot of historical fiction, so I had a quick look on my shelves, and the ones that stood out to me were Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell and The Toymakers by Robert Dinsdale. I haven't read Hamnet yet, and I gave The Toymakers 4 stars just because I really like the writing style and the imagery as well as the story itself. It is a little bit whimsical and fantastical at times, and I'm not 100% sure if you'd like that. And I could be mean and pick this one for you, but I'm gonna be nice and pick Hamnet purely because I haven't read it yet and I want to know what your thoughts are before I read it. I haven't heard a bad word about this yet, so enjoy.
Pick number 12. Please let it be green. Please let it be green. Please let it be green. Yes! Oh my god! Oh my god! I can't believe that this worked. Less than 250 pages. And for this one, I have picked the book. It's called Bücherliebe, which translates into love for books. And this is pretty much about what our bookshelves tell about us. I don't know. It is a nonfiction, and it's talking about how we sort our books and display our books and what it tells us about us. I don't know. How do I get some order into my shelves? Why are shelfies better than selfies? Do you have to finish books? I don't know if this is a book that is necessary, if it's interesting or not. It's getting very mixed reviews right now. I'm not going to go into the reviews too much because I don't want to know. Honestly, I don't want to know. I thought I wanted to take a look at it. It only has a little over 200 pages, so I believe that I can fairly quickly decide if it's bullshit or if it's really interesting. I've got to check it out, and I'm gonna tick it off my list if it's not for me. So, and this is it for July. Way too many books, but I have a really good feeling about these picks. A lot of books that aren't going to take too much time. A lot of books I'm super hyped about. Quite a few books that I had on my TBR already anyways. So I think that even with so many book picks, there's actually a realistic chance that I am not gonna have to do a challenge. Now I'm wondering if I should ask you to wish me luck, because here's the tea. I know that you want me to fail. What genre, like what books do you think I should try and finish last? What books do you think I'm going to fail on? What books do you think I'm not going to be able to read? Or have you read any of the books that I mentioned today, and what do you think of them? Did you like them? Let me know in the comments. This is it for today. Make sure to next week, check out my first sentence book rating prediction, where I read the first sentence out of all the books that I'm going to be reading in July and then predict my rating between 1 and 5. And then it also determines my reading order. So everything that I rate 5, I'm going to have to read first and then go down. And that can lead to some of the best books to be pushed way to the back. But I love that it determines my reading order and I love doing it. So make sure that you check that out. Until then, bye.
Just loving this moment. Can we stay here forever? I'm loving this moment. Can we stay here together? If I could stop the time, don't you know?